Tragedy in New York has recharged President Trump's mission to reform immigration.
Some lawmakers are calling his comments divisive, and others are taking notice of his aggressive response now versus his reaction to the Las Vegas massacre. KCAL9 political reporter Bryan joins us now with a comparison of this, Dave.
Yeah, well, the president definitely took aim at the Democrats, especially Chuck Schumer really went after him. President Trump responded to yesterday's terrorist attack in New York with great anger and plenty of partisan appeal. He argued that the attack was allowed by weak and ineffective immigration lottery laws supported by Democrats, he said, while critics charge the president has his facts wrong and needs to get out of attack mode.
We also have to come up with punishment that's far quicker and far greater than the punishment these animals are getting right now.
As he kicked off a cabinet meeting at the White House, President Trump was not mincing words when speaking about the terrorist attack in New York on Tuesday.
My administration is coordinating closely between federal and local officials to investigate the attack and to further investigate this animal who did the attacking.
Demanding quicker and tougher justice for terrorists like Saifullah Saipov, who's charged with carrying out the New York attack.
We need quick justice and we need strong justice, much quicker and much stronger than we have right now. Because what we have right now is a joke and it's a laughing stock.
And the president called on Congress to shut down the visa lottery program the suspect used to enter the U.S. 7 years ago.
We're going to get rid of this lottery program as soon as possible.
In fact, much of the president's ire was aimed at Democrats and Minority Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, who he blamed for creating the visa lottery immigration program.
We're being stopped by Democrats because they're obstructionists. And honestly, they don't want to do what's right for our country.
The diversity program was created in 1990 to increase immigration from countries underrepresented in legal entries. Applicants enter a lottery for up to 50,000 visas, but they still must complete the same background checks as any other immigration program. On Twitter, the president referred to the diversity lottery as the Chuck Schumer beauty. The Senate Minority Leader did support the program, but it was signed into law by Republican President George H.W. Bush in 1990. And in 2013, Schumer was part of a group of senators who tried to make the system merit-based, but failed.
The president ought to stop tweeting and start leading. The American people long for leadership, not divisiveness, not finger-pointing, not name-calling.
And Tennessee Senator Bob Corker agreed.
Yeah, and I don't know that's the way you bring out the best in our country, but everybody has their ways, I guess.
In fact, Senator Schumer said the president and the country would be better served if he emulated President George W. Bush's unifying rally cry standing at the rubble after the 9/11 attack on America.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
President Bush united us. All President Trump does is take advantage, horrible advantage, of a tragedy and try to politicize and divide.
Now, the president even suggested at one point that the New York terrorist suspect might be sent to Guantanamo Bay. But just a few hours later, the government filed federal terrorism charges against him, signaling their intent to prosecute him in federal courts here in the U.S. Jeff, back to you.